Thank you for being a part of medicine singing and the vitality of the spiritual life. In presenting oneself to listen to another about issues of spirituality, it's my responsibility to present, having done what we've spoken of in medicine singing in other sections, which includes draining the brain of criticism, setting aside assumptions, deleting dogma, and seeking dialogue and understanding. Because whoever is presenting themselves, such as you today on this precious time, it is unknown what your beliefs are about spirituality. Nor do I need to know what they are when you come in the door. I just need to be present. So thank you for being part of the vitality of the spiritual life, where a number of the most key aspects of medicine singing come together. It's a challenge not to speak of certain aspects of spirituality, including world religions and dogma and doctrine. But today, we take a different type of journey. The common theme that most everyone seems to find palatable and agreeable, a place to start, is breath, which is why we have spoken of that in other sections of medicine singing as well. The inhale, the pause, the exhale. Breath. Most all would say they can have a conceptualization or a emerging belief of energy, of wave, of tone in the air, much akin to what science is exploring as well. And so that is the first chord, if you will. When we think of the umbilicus to the universe, if you will, the first chord is that sound, that motion, that wave that is coming down through space and time to you and to me. So we begin with the first chord, breath, that has a tone and a harmony as we listen to it. Let me introduce you to a friend of mine here. This is what is called a drone flute, because it appears as two flutes. A drone because one of them remains constant in sound and one of them ever changing in transition. And so the flute says to us, in the center is this point where all is one. So while it appears that there is a constant and a transformation, there is not a difference between the two. So if you blow, you can, if you want to divide things up, hear just the constant. If you want, you can hear just the toning. Again, the toning. And so the drone flute itself, sometimes called a sister flute or a brother flute, when played together, sounds like this. And as a mystery, it tells us of the first chord, the tone that comes in breath to be blown through this open instrument, like the body. And so, then it brings us almost to a second place. But we acknowledge first the first chord, breath. We acknowledge and honor tree that has given its life so that this flute can be present. Transformation. And yet, still tree. And also flute. Things that seem to be several things are one. And so we use this magnificent and beautiful relative, if you will, to demonstrate all the concepts of medicine singing. So we have come to the first chord, which is breath. And so from this sacred container, I will bring a color that represents that and put it in one of the holes of the flute to represent the first chord. To represent the first chord. Sometimes when trees are planted and grow to great heights, some of them are chosen for what's called a sundance. Chosen for a sundance, the tree is cut down by the dancers and then placed in the center of a sacred circle around which there will be dancing during sundance, fasting and purification. A sacred experience. We all know what it's like to have moving experiences and sometimes what some call sacred experiences. We also know what it's like to have the experience of birth, the birth of a new day as the sun rises, the birth of a breath or of a child. We all know the experience of birth because we are the second chord, and the second chord is the navel, where we are connected to mother in the womb. Indigenous peoples know well that the womb holds the placenta, which is called the tree of life because of the way the veins arrange themselves in a beautiful fashion like a tree, known as the tree of life. Also the umbilicus there that gives the sustenance of life from mother to child. The tree of life, the flute that comes from the tree of life. The first chord, which is given to us. We do not control, we do not give it, we do not create it. It is given to us. The first chord. The second chord, the umbilical cord, will be represented by the yellow. In ancient colors, it's the rising sun, it's the new day, it's the new moment, it is the birth. And this represents birth and childhood in the developmental stages of life. If we take the next step, we go into youth. And so we have the first chord and the second chord birthing, the next youth, the next adulthood, and the next eldership. The developmental stages of life, as well as this one, which is the breath after the last breath, the great transition. So we attempt to be able to look at these in sequential order as we think logically, that we had the four developmental stages of life: birth and childhood, youth, adulthood, and eldership, including dying and death, the great transition. All begins from the first chord. So I'd ask you to consider this and do this visualization. You may want a pen and paper nearby where you can make some notes afterwards. But where are you on the developmental sequence of this life? Having come into this world, are you in youth? Are you in adulthood? Are you in elderhood? Perhaps you are in childhood or youth, and you have a disease and you are dying. I still want you to imagine yourself at that place, even though you will think you will not go on to these stages, that you will move quickly to that one. See where you are now. If you're an adult, then you're here. Just simply imagine this is where you are. If you're an elder like myself, I am here. The four developmental stages of life in between the two birthing and transitioning breaths. So now you know where you are. You've chosen which place you are. Now I'd like for you to close your eyes and be in that place, whether that's childhood or youth, whether it's adulthood or eldership. And standing there, turn your head to the right and look behind you to the stages that preceded this. So if you are in adulthood, you will turn your head to the right and you will look at youth and childhood, yours. And take a moment, breathing, reflecting and looking. Just make an observation of what you see as you review your history. Childhood, youth. If you were in adulthood, if you were in elderhood, you're looking back at your adult life as well. Make a note of what you see there. What was important? Who was important? What life events in your life development were significant and mattered to you? And then you will slowly turn your head back to center and front and open your eyes slowly. And so if you were in youth, you look back on your childhood and your birth. If you're an elder, you look back on adulthood and youth and childhood. And you reflected on that. I asked you to think about what was most important or what truly mattered, perhaps who truly mattered, or what experiences were life-changing for you. Just make a note of them in your mind. We'll come back to them. And now, a more unusual experience is to close your eyes at whatever life stage you're in and tilt your head back just slightly and see yourself stepping into the future that you desire, the dreams that you want to pursue, and take that step into the next developmental stage. If you're already in the eldership stage, take that step all the way to the point of where you are approaching dying and death. And as you move forward into your future, stop a moment and find yourself in a place that means a great deal to you. It may be an open glen or forest. It may be a leather hut or teepee. It may be a lodge or a room in your home or a tent, wherever it may be. Be there for just a moment, there in the future. And you hear a rustling sound, and from out of the forest or through the door begin to come some people that you know. The people who have been in your life, present, past, possibly future, who have known you well, who have cared for you or loved you, and you begin to see them come and stand before you in this moment in the future. And you look around at the faces. There are no strangers. And as you breathe, each one takes a moment to step forward in front of you, to say to you what you've meant to them. All you have to do is remain present there in the future and listening. This may be a parent, it may very well be a grandparent or great-grandparents, a coworker, a childhood friend. And what they say to you is what they remember about you and what they have appreciated about you. Take a minute to see those faces and to hear what they have to say to you. Be aware of what you're feeling when you hear what is being said to you. You can always come back to this experience. But now take a breath. There may be more that others want to say, and we'll come back to hear that again. But take a breath and begin to bring all that you just heard and felt and saw, and come back to the developmental stage where you are at. Taking a breath, and when you're ready to slowly open your eyes. And so you are back to the developmental stage of now, having reflected on your future, met people there that have been in your past and present. You've looked at your past, and we've spoken in medicine singing of the essentialness of the honesty about our past. We've talked about the importance of the honesty of our present, our limitations as well as our competencies and capabilities. We've talked about the developmental stages and how important they are. And we've talked about the future and the dream that you may long for. So we take that latitude of gratitude of all that has been, and we take that longitude of longing, the dream that we choose to pursue, and find ourselves at whatever developmental stage you are at this moment. And you breathe. And we recognize you are in the flow of breath. From the first chord to the second chord, each developmental stage, to the last breath, which will become the next breath in your life development. When we speak of the vitality of the spiritual life, it's the breath we speak of that flows into this instrument called you and your body, from that first chord into the second chord, and that magnificent in utero experience, through the developmental life stages and all of their richness, to the last breath. Now, we are not naive in saying, what a wonderful time this will be. We also acknowledge truthfulness in all of the stages. There will be times when we play a song of great sadness. There will be times when we will sing a song of great sorrow for what has occurred around us or in our world or in our families. There will be moments when we are anxious and our hands will tremble, and the notes will sound different because the hand trembles. We're human. And what we will also have is, after those moments, a place to go here inside, where we find that chord that is connected to the entire world universe. And no matter what is happening around us, this vitality of the spiritual life will take us to a place called home. And you can tone it, breathe it, the flow of it, here. You are not alone. And we are home. And we are all related. Thank you for coming to the spirituality and the vitality that it holds for us.